As the Duelist Saga reprints were rolling in, one of the cards that was announced on stream was M-X-Saber Invoker. People pretty much freaked out because that makes Zoodiacs a little bit more budget, but I didn't really understand that claim because if you can afford like the other $600 of the deck, I highly doubt that Invoker was the card keeping you back. So because of that, I wanted to talk about 5 decks that can play Invoker if you're a more budget player or looking for something casual to play. And I think a lot of these have been forgotten, so I really want to give them some attention in this top 5 video. Taking the number 5 spot is UAs. This was a world premiere archetype from a couple years ago, and I think people at the time were actually pretty excited about UAs, especially when UA Midfielder came out, because up until that point, all of the UA monsters were tribute monsters, which made playing the deck really impossible, basically, because if you don't know, all the UA monsters revolve around bouncing cards back to the hand to summon other ones from the hand, and when you only have tribute monsters, it's really inconsistent. But between Foolish Burial of Goods being able to send the UA Trap to the grave to search any UA spell, and the fact that Terror Top can bring out Midfielder, the only low level UA from the deck, I think that Invoker actually makes a huge difference in UAs. I know that way back when, this was when UAs came out, Invoker wasn't very expensive, so I feel like people were teching that already. Even going as far as put Tour Guide in the deck. But even now, I think the deck is still, at least on a casual level, still semi-playable. I mean, they have a Herald Reflection type card. They have some neat OTKs. They have one of the most broken equip spells in the game as far as themed equip spells go. And they might not be super viable or anything, but they're one of those decks that can just take people off guard. And Invoker is definitely a good card for them. And like I said, because Foolish Burial of Goods came out, which is already a boost to the archetype, I feel like the Invoker reprint could spar some interest in casual players. Number 4 is one of my personal favorite archetypes, Koa'ki Meiru's. At least the good Koa'ki Meiru's. So there's a couple level 4 ones, mainly Koa'ki Meiru Urnite, which lets you reveal an Iron Core from your hand, a special summon a Koa'ki Meiru from the deck. That usually grabs Koa'ki Meiru Crusader, but can also grab Koa'ki Meiru Drago. I've profiled this deck a bunch of different times on my channel. I think that Koa'ki Meiru's are a deck that I will always have in the back of my head. They have a bunch of one or two card 4K damage combos, and they just have so many big beaters that it's hard for a lot of decks to deal with them, especially in slower formats. And they have access through Urnite to basically any Koa'ki Meiru monster that they want, and namely Koa'ki Meiru Drago. So Koa'ki Meiru Drago can stop the special summoning of light and dark monsters just while it's on the field. That's really powerful in certain formats, not necessarily in the one that we're in right now, but Diamond Core of Koa'ki Meiru, the search spell, you can banish it from the grave to prevent Koa'ki Meiru from being destroyed for the turn. That's actually a really good counter to Drident, and Invoker's really cool in that deck because it can bring out Urnite from the deck, which is the most important card by far. It can also bring out Crusader if you really wanted to, but I think the main thing I've used it for in the past is summoning a Terror Top, special summoning an Urnite, and then summoning a Crusader from the deck. That's a lot of damage off of one Terror Top, and prior to Zoodiacs being released, it was arguably some of the most momentum you could get off a single Terror Top. I know that's probably not a good comparison now that Zoodiacs are released, but once again, this is a really good anti-meta strategy that I've gone back to time and time again. Whenever the format turns to light and dark monsters being really popular, or destruction effects are really popular, I think Koa'ki Meiru's are a good choice. Jeff Jones even took it to a WCQ back in 2014 and just barely missed out on top cut, I believe losing in the very last round. But it's a fun deck. I continue to profile it. I will continue to profile it as long as Koa'ki Meiru Drago is a relevant card. But Terror Top is really good in the deck. Tour Guide was really good in the deck. Anything that can put Invoker on the field to get out an Urnite without using your normal summon is just going to be good in my book. Number 3, Subterrors. So you guys all know I love Subterrors more than anyone else, and despite their abysmal support, I still think that Terror Top is a really powerful card in that deck because Invoker can bring out Subterror Nemesis Warrior straight from the deck. I've already posted, I think, 2 combos using Invoker on my channel back when Subterrors first came out. One of them is if you have, I believe, Terror Top and Heretic Dragon of Tefnuit, because you can Invoker out the Subterror Nemesis Warrior, tribute summon the Tefnu it over the Invoker, and then use Nemesis Warrior to tribute both those monsters or bring out Slagmo from the deck, and then Tefnu it triggers its effect. That was a combo that was really fun at the time. It's really cool interaction. I still think that Subterror Nemesis Warrior is the best Subterror that has been released. For a while, I thought it was like Archer, because Archer did a lot in terms of like accelerating in their combos, and it worked with like the Metalfoes cards and it worked with the Zoodiac cards. But I think Nemesis Warrior is still like the bread and butter of the deck, and it's one that can be brought out straight from your deck with Invoker, so you don't have to normal summon it, and that's just way too good. I know people, for the most part, have maybe given up on Subterrors, but I haven't. And if you've forgotten about the deck, or if you were, I know when I've posted Subterror videos in the past, people say, well, is there a replacement to like the expensive cards like Invoker and Desires? And while there might be like a couple replacements for Desires in terms of just like don't play it. For Invoker, there really isn't a replacement for it in Subterrors, because there isn't another card that just summons a monster from the deck so easily. So now if you've been like playing Subterrors as a casual deck and you want to play it maybe at your local tournament or something, and you've been not playing Terra Top because you don't have Invoker, I think now would be a good time to pick up Invoker just to play it in Subterrors if you've been holding back. I know some people have been, because there's a lot of ways to play Subterrors, and a lot of them are probably more expensive than the deck is worth, just because, I mean, how much money do you want to spend on a deck that like can't really do that great in tournaments? But as far as casual play, I mean, we don't really know how much Invoker reprint is going to be now. I would assume very cheap, just because the whole set is just hollows, so that would make sense. But yeah, I think Subterrors are good. I think Invoker is good in Subterrors, which is why I've included Terra Top in many of my builds. And I just wanted to remind you guys that they do in fact exist, and in the next coming months they'll get their last wave of support, making it an even more appealing choice. The number 2 spot is going to be 2 Wind-Ups. So you can special summon Wind-Up Warrior from the deck using Invoker. This is not as good as Zen Mighty, or what is the Carrier? I don't even know what the full name of that card is, but the Wind-Up Carrier. Wind-Up Carrier Zen Mighty, I believe is the name. The rank 3 that it's been forbidden forever. It's not quite as good because it doesn't actually trigger the wind-up effects, and it can only summon Warrior, but still, it's a good combo maker. I know that when Wind-Up Carrier originally got banned, a lot of people started talking about Invoker in that deck when Invoker eventually came out, and it was like, is that good enough to replace Carrier? Not really, but it's something, and we did see Magician go to 2, I believe, on the last list, not this current list, obviously, but if Wind-Ups ever get like Magician back to 3 or even Carrier back to 1, I can see Invoker being played to start the combos or to be a replacement to Carrier if you don't actually need the Carrier play. This is something that we have seen, especially, like I said, right after Carrier got banned. People were looking for a way to play Wind-Ups. This is like the only real replacement to a card that can just like summon monsters from the deck. It can't bring out everything, but it can bring out Warrior, and that's can be a level 5 monster, so that's pretty good. But yeah, if you're looking to play Wind-Ups, this is like the only way to really play it. And Wind-Ups overall are pretty budget. I mean, they used to not be, but I mean, you just have like, they're all like super rares basically. It's just like Shark and Rat, and like Magician's are rare, and Rabbit you can get in a super rare. I'm pretty sure the secret rare isn't very expensive anyway. But these are just like cards that you can get pretty cheaply that you can play on a casual level. And if you're holding out an Invoker for a deck that isn't worth a lot of money, this reprint should be cheap enough to where you can buy it. And I think, I can confidently say that I know it'll make a huge difference if you're playing a deck like Wind-Ups. Lastly, this is one of my favorite decks of all time, Madolche's. I think out of all 5 of these, this is the most competitive deck right now that can play Invoker. And the target for it is Madolche Messengelato, which if you have a beast Madolche in the field, you can then trigger its effect to search a card, because obviously Invoker doesn't negate the monster's effect. But I've played Invoker and Madolche's for years now, and pretty much everyone does. It's a staple one of. Some people have played 2. Levier is probably better in the long run. But Invoker is really important because you don't always have a monster in the banished zone that you can bring back with Levier, so you need Invoker to bring out Messengelato straight from the deck. And that's a really important combo piece. When I got my top 8 at, I think it was an Indianapolis regional, with Madolche's, Invoker was a huge combo piece that I used over and over and over again. And Madolche's are looking pretty good going forward. I always think this deck is going to be threatening just for the fact that Madolche Angeli, I mean, prior to Zoodiacs, was I said for the longest time, one of the best one card combo makers. There's so much advantage off of one Angeli. I mean, you get the Hoot Cake, you get the Messengelato, you get the Ticket. That's just like so much momentum for future plays, and it requires literally no setup. And Invoker is one of those cards that can just put another 1600 damage on board. It can bring out a second Messengelato from the deck to get even more searches in the same turn. And man, like I've used that combo so many times at events, locals and regionals, and it's one of my favorite combos. And like I said, you don't always have the banished cards to bring back with Leviair, so you actually just need Invoker to play Madolche successfully. So if you've been playing Madolches for a while and you've been holding out Invoker, once again, I know I keep saying that, but it really is true. There's so many decks that are really cheap overall, but then they need like a card like Invoker to truly be semi-competitive, and I think Madolche is probably the best one of those. So if you have all Madolche cards but you don't have the Invoker, you should probably pick it up now while it's cheap. And yeah, hopefully you guys liked this video and agreed with my top 5. If you have other decks that you want to suggest, feel free to. Once again, I just want to show you guys some non-Zoodiac decks that can take advantage of Invoker, because it is a very good card even outside of crazy combos with Zoodiacs. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Bye.